How much authority does a guardian have over a woman's life choices before marriage? Allah. So, guardian, let's say here the father, for example, الرجال قوامون على النساء. So, men are, we can say, the protective providers. So, al-qa'im bi-shay, someone who watches over and takes care of something and guards it, maintains it. So, the qawwam is an intensive form of that. It's like a profession, he's constantly doing it. So, over a lady's life choices before marriage, I mean, classically, where they talked about that he could, before, actually, let's just look at it this way. A lady is free to make her own life choices, but the guardian is responsible for protecting her and keeping her safe and ensuring her well-being in her physical sense, her mental and emotional avenue of her life, and also in her religious identity as well. So anything that's going to compromise her connection to the religion, or something that could be a bad influence, even if it be friends or whatever, he can say, look, this is not good for you, and he can step in there. Physical well-being, if she's doing something that's going to get her physically harmed or emotionally harmed, he can step in, because it's there for her well-being, right? And this is obviously, well-being would be what people customarily understand as well-being. And if like some forms of what you'd call harm people do to themselves can seem acceptable in certain standards. Like if you get a Muay Thai kickboxer and he's getting a rolling pin and rolling it up and down his shin to toughen his shins for when he does his kicks, most people think that hurts, don't do that, but for him it's acceptable. So there's certain things, we're not talking about those scenarios, we're talking about what is customarily. What if a group of people who understood the deen, who understood life and well-being, if they looked at this behavior and they say, yeah, that is actually bad for you. Such as like addictions, addictive behavior. So if you have a parent, if you have a child who's, or even a teenager, someone who's just on their phone constantly throughout the night, with their friends, just chatting, whatever, and then this leads to waking up late, leads to an impact on their education, or impact on, say, a job if they have a job, then the guardian can step in and say, look, this is not happening, right? Either confiscate the phone or switch off the internet at night or whatever. But this thing, it involves their well-being. As for actual life choices, that's down to the individual, and it's the role of parents not to just, put bubble wrap around their children, but to educate them, to teach them. As a child, as a parent, if you have a child who's 8, 9, 10, teach them life lessons. People tell them stories, or, we talked about, people watching, say movies, animated movies or something like that. Teach them lessons from it. Teach them to know when they're being manipulated, when they're not being manipulated, when someone has their best interest. So they should be teaching them. So can the parents say, right, I want you to go and become, forget trying to become, a pharmacist, I want you to go become, a dentist. Can he force that on the child? No, right? Her life choices, even down to the marriage partner. There are broad categories, the kafa, suitability, what is considered suitable for this lady. Those categories are recognized, and if she finds someone who doesn't meet that criteria, he can say, look, I don't want you marrying this person. Because sometimes people in youth, and due to a lack of life experience, it can lead them to problems. So for example, let's say she's let's say they're used to a higher standard of living, and she falls in love with someone, or who's, he's an honest, but he's a taxi driver, so someone who's not going to have the income of, say, her father, who's a doctor, right? She's going to be used to a particular standard of living, and then they may think, oh, well, we love each other, that's enough. Great, you love each other, but maybe when you get married, you have a child, maybe she will want a higher standard, like, I want to get this nice pram for my baby, something that's got all the bells and whistles, and he might say, well, I can't afford that. And that can lead to a bit of, say, frustration, and then the next thing and the next thing, and then eventually become resentment. It has a knock-on effect. So there are certain criteria the Sharia has in place. Beyond that, if the suitor matches those, it's her choice, and the guardian has to say, I agree, let's go for it. It's wajib on them if all the criteria are met. So these are some of the things, but it comes down to their well-being and safety, right? And so the safety in terms of the things that matter, deen, and then so religious practice, and then physical and emotional, mental well-being. And Allah knows best. Allah knows best.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله